Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the weekly report. Why is the Biden administration pushing Ukraine to attack Russia? On March 24th, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky signed what was essentially a declaration of war on Russia. In the document titled Presidential Decree number 117/2021, the U.S.-backed Ukrainian leader declared that it is the official policy of Ukraine to take back Crimea from Russia. The declaration that Ukraine would take back Crimea from Russia also followed and was perhaps instigated by President Biden's inflammatory and foolish statement that Crimea is Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was a chief architect of the U.S.-backed coup against Ukraine in 2014, continued egging on the Ukrainians, promising full U.S. support for the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Many Americans wonder why they are not even half as concerned about the territorial integrity of the United States. Not to be outdone, at the beginning of this month, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who previously served on the board of missile-making Raytheon, called his counterpart in Ukraine and promised unwavering U.S. support for Ukraine's sovereignty. As the U.S. considers Crimea to be Ukrainian territory, this is clearly a clear green light for Kiev to take military action. Washington is also sending in weapons. Some 300 tons of new weapons have arrived in the past weeks, and more is on the way. As could be expected, Moscow has responded to Zelensky's decree and to the increasingly bellicose rhetoric in Kiev and Washington by repositioning troops and other military assets closer to its border with Ukraine. Does anyone doubt that if the U.S. were in the same situation, for example, if China installed a hostile and aggressive government in Mexico, the Pentagon might move troops in a similar fashion? But according to the media branch of the U.S. military industrial congressional media complex, Russian troop movements are not a response to clear threats from a neighbor, but instead are just more Russian aggression. The unhinged U.S. experts behind the 2014 coup against the elected Ukrainian president are back in power, and they are determined to finish the job, even if it means World War III. The explicit U.S. backing of Ukraine's military ambitions in the region are a blank check to Kiev. But it is a check that Kiev would be wise to avoid cashing. Back in 1956, the U.S. government pumped endless propaganda into Hungary, promising military backing for an uprising against its Soviet occupiers. When the Hungarians, believing Washington's lies, did rise up, they found themselves all alone and facing Soviet retaliation. Despite the cruel U.S. propaganda, at least Eisenhower was wise enough to realize that no one would benefit from a nuclear war over Budapest. Why is it any of our business whether Crimea is part of Ukraine or part of Russia? Why is it any of our business if the Russian-speaking population of eastern Ukraine prefer being aligned with Russia? Why, for that matter, are unproven allegations of Russian meddling in our elections a violation of the rules-based international order, but an actual U.S.-backed coup against an elected Ukrainian government is not? We are seeing foreign policy made by Raytheon and the other U.S. military contractors. Feckless U.S. foreign policy experts believe their own propaganda about Russia and are on the verge of taking us to war over it. It seems as if Americans are sleepwalking through this dangerous minefield. Let us hope they soon wake up before we're all blown up. Thanks for listening.